I'm going to introduce you to selections. I'm not going to go on about this for very long because there are lots of really great in-depth video tutorials on YouTube and on Adobe TV to teach you how to do selections. But I'll just give you a really quick introduction. Um, so if I I'm just going to show the background layer. So option click on the eyeball checkbox next to background, and that hides all the other layers. And I'm going to grab this tool called the rectangular marquee tool. And let's just zoom in, Command plus. And I'm just going to click and drag on my image. And this creates a little sort of rectangular selection. If I want to get rid of that selection and try again, I can just click outside of it. The other way I can deselect something is, this is the one that I always use all the time, use Command D on the keyboard as your keyboard shortcut. Very useful. So let's make another selection. This time when I click and drag, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. And what that does is it constrains the proportions of the rectangular marquee to a square, so I can get a perfect square selection. Let's deselect that. I want to show you as well, if I click and hold on this tool, it will reveal a couple of other selection tools, including the elliptical marquee. And if I click and draw on my document, you can see I get a elliptical shape as my selection. Again, if I hold down the Shift key as I click and drag, I'll get a perfect circle. One other thing I want to show you is you can also use the Shift key to build up your selection from several shapes. So let's go back to the rectangular marquee. And just say I wanted to select these three windows on the document. Well, I'd click and drag over one window. Then I'd hold down the Shift key, click and drag over another window. And then keep holding the Shift key and click and drag over the final window. So I now have these three different areas selected. That can be a little bit confusing because I just showed you that the Shift key is used to make a perfect square. It's all about when you press the Shift key. So just say I wanted to add a perfect square to this selection somehow. Well, I'd hold the Shift key, click and start dragging. Then without letting go of the mouse, I'd let go of the Shift and then hold it again. And now I can add a perfect square to my selection. Anyway, there's many other selection tricks that you can learn, and I just recommend that you do use Google to find some videos and find them on YouTube. For the moment, let's just stick with what we're doing. So I'm going to select all of these windows again. And I'm going to copy these windows into a layer of their own. So let's go Edit, Copy, or you can go, sorry, I've got to make sure I've got the background layer selected. Now you can go Edit, Copy, but of course you're going to want to use keyboard shortcuts. So let's just go Command C and then Command V to paste. What that's done is it's pasted my selection into its own layer. You can see that when I click and drag the layer around. And if I hide the background layer, you can just see that they're there in their own layer. That isn't what I want to do at the moment. Let's drag that layer into the trash on the Layers panel. You can also, let's just undo, you can also, if you want to delete a layer, just hit the Delete key. There we go, it's gone. I'm going to select these windows again and show you what I actually want to do, which is to lighten them. I wanted them to stand out more against the dark background. Before I lighten them, I'm just going to adjust my selection a bit. So let's use this button on the control panel. on the options panel, when the rectangular marquee is the active tool, when any of the selection tools are the active tool, you'll see this refine edge button. Let's just click on that. I just want to soften the edges of my selection. It's a very hard geometric shape at the moment. I want it to soften a little bit. In Photoshop, you call this feathering. I won't go into all the controls on this panel. I'm just going to, at the moment, use the feather slider to soften the edges of the selection. You would see that the image is still nice and sharp inside the selection. It's just the edges of the selection that soften with the feather. So I'm going to make this really accurate and just type 2 pixels into this field and click OK. Now, instead of copying these into their own layer, I'm going to just use an adjustment to bring the brightness up. So let's go Image, Adjustments, Brightness, Contrast. And I'm going to just bring the brightness up. And I'm going to take the contrast down a bit. And I'm going to go OK. Before we move on from the selection tools, I'm going to show you one other thing. If you use the keyboard shortcut Command H, it will hide the selection, but it will keep it selected. So if I hit Command H again, the selection is still there. This can be useful if you want to get a bit of an idea of what your image looks like without these moving dots on it. Let's just hide that selection again and switch to the Move tool, and you'll see what the effect the selection is having. If I hit Command H, you can see that I've moved the selection. I'm going to undo that now, Command Z, and I'm going to deselect, because that's exactly how I want my image to look, with those nice brighter windows. It looks a little bit more spooky. And I'm going to Option click to bring my layers back. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, I have to manually do it. And let's zoom out. And we're back on track. Anyway, that gives you an idea about how to do selections and some basic adjustments.